With SpaceX launching rockets almost weekly, India launching rockets almost in every 3 months, no bigger rockets being developed. What do you think India will lose the space race? There seems to be no ambition among the political class. And the second question is ISRO has updated the timeline of Gaganyaan to 2025 end, the end of 2025. What could be the reasons, and how should India be more ambitious, citing respite from US? Also, how many space projects India must expect to at least reach Moon or Mars with men, women by the end of this decade? So, where is India in the space race? So, first of all, um, let's go and see. Okay, how many missions has ISRO done? So let me look for that. Let me bring that on the screen. ISRO missions accomplished, and let me put that on the screen. How many missions has ISRO conducted thus far? Missions accomplished by ISRO. Let's take the question. There we go. So how many rockets has ISRO launched thus far? ISRO apparently has launched 98 rockets, okay, dating back to 1979. From 1979 to 2024 end, ISRO has launched 98 rockets. 98 rockets. Now let's do the same thing for SpaceX. Let's do the same thing for SpaceX. I'm gonna go and search for SpaceX. SpaceX launches. Okay, let me put the SpaceX launches on the screen, shall we? So ISRO 98 thus far from 1979 onwards. ISRO and SpaceX. Where is it? SpaceX was incorporated as a company in 2006, I believe. Since 2006, 419 launches, 381 total landings, 352 total reflights. And if you look at the Starlink data, it's even more ridiculous, right? So that is the situation. ISRO since 1979 has 98 launches. SpaceX since 2006 has 419 rocket launches, 381 landings. We don't even have a reusable rocket that can land on its own. And then the question of reflights doesn't even occur, right? So that is the situation. Okay, where are we? The question, here we are. So where is India in the space race? To be very honest, India isn't a participant in the space race. India is simply trying to achieve some small little objectives. In a few years, we will have a human being orbit the Earth, or maybe three people orbit the Earth from the Gaganyaan capsule. That was first accomplished in the 1960s or 50s, wherever it was. 50s, 60s. We are trying to do that now. Then, by the end of this decade, by the 2030s, we will have a small space station. That was achieved in the second half of the 20th century. Then, by 2040 or something, we'll put a person on the moon. That was also achieved in 1969. And Mars, we're not even thinking about Mars. We don't have an integrated long term, step by step space program. We have one mission to Venus, one another mission coming up to Mars in some time. We have a haphazard space program. Our space program isn't aligned with the Indian national interest or India's geopolitical priorities. We don't see space as an integral component of our geopolitical plans. We don't have ambition. I'm not criticizing ISRO. I'm criticizing the government of India. ISRO can only do what the government approves. They can maybe put proposals, but the government has its own way of looking at things. So I have said many times that ISRO doesn't have a significant budget. And the ISRO chief, the head of ISRO, he at some point in time had come on the Ranveer show, Ranveer's podcast. And Ranveer asked this question because I've discussed this with Ranveer many times. So Ranveer asked my question to the chairman of ISRO, Dr. Somnath. And Dr. Somnath said that ISRO often cannot use up all the money that's budgeted, that's allocated to it in its budget. And sometimes at the end of the year, it has to return some of the money to the government. So does it mean that I am wrong and that ISRO has all the budget it needs. It doesn't mean that. It means that only certain missions are approved, and for that a certain budget is given. But the mission, so the project for creating a heavy launch vehicle that is 10 times more powerful than the current GSLV, that project doesn't exist. So then how can there be a budget for that? The mission for developing reusable rockets doesn't exist. So how will you have a budget for that? So the modest little missions that are approved, there is sufficient budget for that only. So there's no ambition from the government. The ISRO engineers and scientists can undertake even very ambitious missions. They've demonstrated the capability. So we are not in the space race. We are simply an afterthought. We, India. Very disappointing to see the government's attitude towards space. Very disappointing. India has the potential to be a major space power, but now we are so far behind. SpaceX is a private company that was incorporated in 2006, and it has launched what? 4 times more rockets than ISRO has launched since 1979. More than 4 times the rockets. And they now have the most powerful rocket ever constructed, ever designed. And we still have to take the help of SpaceX or Ariane or whatever to launch certain satellites, because our most powerful rocket can't handle that weight. Can't we develop more powerful rockets? Of course we can. We can have it ready in the next 3 years if you give the sufficient budget and you have an ambitious timeline. You can develop a rocket that's 10 times more powerful in 3 years. Just see how rapidly SpaceX has developed more and more powerful rockets. The Starship, the first test was in 2019. It was a brick, it was a can on wheel, on 4 legs or 3 legs with a rocket engine at the bottom. It was not even shaped like a rocket. And today in 24, about 5 years later, they have the most powerful rocket in the world. That's how quickly they're able to develop technology. Can't we do that? Of course we can. But we don't want to. The government doesn't want it. So what can I say about it? Yeah, so we can certainly reach the moon. I would say we can reach the moon by 2035. I would say that Chandrayaan 10 should be a manned mission to the moon. We can certainly do that by 2025. We can reach Mars by, let's say, 2045 or something. SpaceX will reach Mars by the end of this decade. So we are way behind. We don't even have a Mars mission right now, a manned Mars mission. No one is even thinking about it. So we are far behind. We certainly have the ability to catch up very rapidly, but the government doesn't seem to care about it. What can I say? That's where we stand right now in the so-called space race.